Almost everybody knows that there are personnel management issues to take care of in the next year. Almost nobody plans on dying in the next year, and yet transition planning is always there. There are all these short-run and long-run issues that we continually have to think about.
That's Brad Lubben talking about human risk, just one of the 5 areas of risk management in agriculture. Ahead, he'll discuss what risk management issues producers are facing today on both sides of a divided ag economy. That's now on Nebraska Farmcast. From the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, this is Nebraska Farmcast. Find a host of farm and ranch management resources on our website at cap.unl.edu. I'm Ryan Evans. This year has felt like 2 different farm economies, with crop producers working through tight margins and rising costs for a while now, propped up in large part by government payments. Meanwhile, cattle producers have been riding some of the strongest prices in years, though drought and wildfire recovery have brought their own sets of headaches. Underneath both of those stories, though, is the same basic challenge, which is managing risk, whether it's production, marketing, financial, legal, or the human side of running an operation. That range of risk that's facing producers today is the topic of this month's policy report column in Nebraska Farmer Magazine, and to dive into it, I'm glad to be joined again by its author, Dr. Brad Lubben. He's an Extension Ag Policy Specialist here at Nebraska and Director of the North Central Extension Risk Management Education Center. Brad, welcome back.
Good to be with you.
So in your new policy report, and you've talked this way for a long time, we've talked about it countless times on the podcast, it seems, but you've described this ag economy as a tale of 2 farms where, as I said, tight margins on the crop side are present while strong prices on the cattle side are remaining. So does that split mean that risk management looks different for both sectors right now, or is there a common thread?
You know, it certainly means that the 2 sectors do face different kinds of risks in terms of cash flow and financial position. Maybe the crop sector obviously is facing a bigger challenge than the livestock sector, than the cattle sector specifically. But they still face a common set of risks. Think about how they manage market price risk, or how they handle production cost risk, or how they handle financial, legal, and human risks. They still have to manage those things, and it's a fairly consistent question between the 2.
And I mentioned in the open, you alluded to a few of them right there, and you mentioned the 5 areas of risk management that risk management education often focuses on in agriculture. That's production, marketing, financial, legal, and human risk. Of those 5, which, or is there one that tends to catch producers most off guard?
You know, I would think if I start first with what seems to be the obvious, if we say risk management, we first think of insurance and crop insurance, and now over the last couple decades, the increased role of livestock insurance products. So I think of insurance as how we manage risk, but it's every management decision we make that really is fundamentally about helping to manage risk on the operation. And while we might fundamentally think about production risk and price risk as a way to manage the inflows, the financial viability of the farm, one of the areas that often gets put off until it can't is the area of human risk. And think about human risk that producers face in terms of managing the people they work with. That is the people that they hire in an operation. Well, that's personnel management, and we have a history of talking about principles of personnel management, from recruiting to hiring to training to retaining and so forth. But it's also managing those relationships that you don't hire and fire, the family relationships in a family operation, or even the personal well-being. Those are issues that you have to fundamentally succeed at or manage effectively. Otherwise, everything else that happens in the operation still doesn't guarantee a viability.
Yeah, and if human risk is the area of risk management that's perhaps difficult for many operations or people to wrap their heads around because it's not maybe as tangible as direct financial risk or some of the other areas, why does human risk then belong among the 5 key areas of risk management, like alongside financial risk, legal risk, things that are more concrete maybe?
Yeah, well, we can think of, again, if everything is about how we manage risks in operation to position the operation for success, to improve its long-run viability, well, human risk is definitely in that category. And certainly we want to manage on the legalities, the regulations, the best practices for managing people, but it also means managing yourself. And a good way to think about human risk is, in the next year, we all worry about, well, how are we going to find a labor force, or how are we going to manage people, or how are we going to arrange tasks and responsibilities within this operation. Over the long run, what are we going to do about farm transition and farm and ranch transition? What is the opportunity for the next generation? Almost everybody knows that there are personnel management issues to take care of in the next year. Almost nobody plans on dying in the next year, and yet transition planning is always there. There are all these short-run and long-run issues that we continually have to think about.
And on the financial side, if we can shift gears to that, we know crop producers, as we've mentioned, they're leaning more on government payments to get through the tight margins of the last few years. So is there anything they could be doing differently in their financial planning, given how uncertain that government support can be from year to year, as we've talked about here?
Yeah. If we actually bundle broadly the areas of production risk and price risk and financial risk, it all sort of contributes to the bottom line for producers. And one of the things, again, to note is, what do we worry about in a given year? We have to figure out marketing this year. We have to improve our marketing game, or we have to do a better job of managing price risk. But fundamentally, over the longer run, we have to manage the operation successfully and to adapt to whatever price environment we're in. Today, we're worried about output prices and input prices. Over the long run, and how to manage those risks over the long run, we also have to figure out how to adapt to whatever market we're actually operating in and how to manage costs accordingly. So on the financial side, it's if we're facing cash flow issues right now, we have to figure out where in our operation we can make changes and what that might do. We have to think about whether we can reposition some of the debt in our operation, moving it maybe from short-term operating debt to long-term term obligations. Well, that might help us with our liquidity issues at the moment. That might help us with our cash flow issues. It doesn't fundamentally promise that we were changing the profitability and the viability of the operation. So we still have to make some long-run decisions about where we're invested and what sector or what enterprise is really providing return on our investment, and figuring out the financial success for the long run.
And on the other side, where cash flow may be less of an issue for some cattle producers who have been sitting on the best prices in years lately, what are some of the biggest decisions or considerations for them right now?
You bet. Yeah, cattle producers have been enjoying almost continual record price after record price up to the last several weeks here. But even they're faced with, I'm generating record returns in a cow-calf operation. That implies that there are signals to tell me to grow that operation and to build for the future. Well, building for the future is also expensive. Those same record prices that we're receiving for this year's calf crop are the same record prices we're paying for replacements to build the herd into the future. We're also managing production risk because we're coming off of drought and extended drought concerns, as well as wildfire losses. And for as much as we might want to invest in a growing cattle herd, we also have to match that up with our grazing resources, whether it's the grassland capacity or whether it's the feedstuffs that we might supplement with. But we got to manage production potential and risk along with long-run economic decisions. At the top of the cattle cycle, at least in terms of prices, is a tough time to figure out the economics of buying a replacement heifer that hopefully is going to give you a calf over the next 10 years, which are not all going to be at the top of that cattle price cycle. And so trying to make long-run investments given short-run price signals is also part of the challenge of managing through this risk.
For producers who are looking at diversification or direct marketing, they might face a different set of risks than a traditional commodity operation, right? So what should someone considering those watch out for?
Yeah, let's think about it this way first. If I'm in traditional commodity production agriculture, corn, soybeans, wheat, sorghum, cattle, hogs, etc., I'm worried about price competitiveness, and I'm worried about productivity. I'm worried about whether I can achieve profitability at the markets that I see available to me. But I at least have the privilege of producing a commodity that is easily marketed and merchandisable. Just as soon as I think about there's got to be better economic opportunities. If only I can add value, if only I can go into the direct marketing arena and sort of manage more of the marketing chain. Well, there may well be more value in there for traits that you can add or for a legacy that you can brand on that product and deliver to the consumer. But it also means now you're about more than production. You're now into merchandising. You're now into customer relations. If you want to build an operation that faces consumers, you also face an awful lot of visitor customer traffic and liability and regulatory issues of running a storefront, and so suddenly the business gets a lot more complex than just producing a commodity and selling it to the local merchant. And while that might be a great opportunity, it might be a great entry point for some beginning farmers and ranchers. It might be a great value-added opportunity, particularly in a time when we're concerned about narrow price margins for traditional commodity production. It brings its own inherent risks and challenges that demand the attention of the producer as well.
In addition to your role as the Ag Policy Specialist here at the University of Nebraska, you serve as Director of the North Central Extension Risk Management Education Center, as I mentioned, housed here at UNL. If you want to take a moment, just explain what the center is doing in the risk management education arena.
Right. Well, remembering again the range of risks that producers face, from production to marketing to financial to legal to human risks, helping producers manage that wide range of risks is fundamentally the mission of the Extension Risk Management Education Program. We're funded through grants from USDA to run a regional center that in turn runs a regional grants program, not directly to producers, but to educators and organizations and entities that deliver producer-focused risk management education. So we work with USDA to receive funds to in turn run a regional grants program that helps support the kinds of programming that producers want locally to help them think about risk management education. It's something we've been doing successfully here since the program started back in 2001. So we have more than 25 years of experience now in supporting projects that help producers. There's information on our website at ncerme.org or on our national website at extensionrme.org. But you'll find information there about the kinds of things we do. We're helping entities, organizations, educators that in turn help producers.
That's Brad Lubben, the Extension Ag Policy Specialist here at Nebraska, and you can find his latest policy report column on risk management education in the September issue of Nebraska Farmer Magazine and linked to in the notes to this podcast. Brad, as always, I appreciate your time. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you for listening to Nebraska Farmcast, a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I'm Ryan Evans, and you can find a host of farm and ranch management resources, including articles, decision tools, videos, and more on the Center for Agricultural Profitability's website, cap.unl.edu.